Why? Isaiah is the Bible's most terrifying book. Unveil ancient secrets and unveiling of divine purpose. Imagine a world teetering on the brink. A man facing an unimaginable burden and a revelation poised to forever alter the course of human destiny. Have you ever considered why, among the 66 books of the Bible, Isaiah stands alone as the most extraordinary? Why is he hailed as the evangelist of the Old Testament, whose words resonated so profoundly that even Jesus himself quoted him more than any other prophet? Today, prepare for an unveiling that will forever transform how you read and understand the Bible. What you are about to hear is far more than ancient history. It is a profound, secret code, preserved and revealed for our very generation. This is the book that astonishingly foretold the virgin birth 700 years in advance, meticulously described the crucifixion with terrifying precision before such crosses even existed, and painted the most accurate, vivid portrait of the Messiah. This message, freely shared, holds the potential for profound impact on your life. If it resonates with your spirit, we simply ask for a gesture in return. Subscribe to the God is Mysterious channel and turn on notifications. Your support enables us to continue spreading this powerful word, reaching more hearts every single day. A prophetic symphony echoes across time. What if I told you that Isaiah's prophecies didn't merely speak of the past, but deliver direct messages and profound warnings for our generation, with promises unfolding before our very eyes? Do you know why Isaiah is often called the fifth gospel? It's because it mirrors the very structure of the Bible itself, containing 66 chapters. Just as there are 66 books in the Bible, the first 39 chapters speak of judgment. Much like the Old Testament's focus on law and consequences, the last 27 chapters speak of hope, mirroring the New Testament's message of grace and redemption. Coincidence? Absolutely not. What you are about to discover will take your breath away, for Isaiah holds prophecies so accurate, so impossibly precise, that skeptics have tirelessly sought explanations for centuries, failing at every turn. Prepare for a journey that will not only transform your faith, but will ensure you never see the Bible the same way again. A kingdom shrouded in fear. Isaiah's burden a year was marked by an unsettling quiet in Jerusalem, a quiet broken only by the rising tide of fear. The death of King Uzziah had cast a chilling shadow, a deep wave of insecurity sweeping across the entire kingdom of Judah. In the bustling streets, panic flowed like water, silent, yet undeniably visible in the haunted eyes of every man, woman, and child. For 52 long years, King Uzziah had been a beacon of prosperity and safety, but now his passing seemed to herald a dark, uncertain future. Isaiah, a young priest from an honorable lineage, observed it all with growing concern. He had grown up steeped in stories of God's immense greatness, a constant presence in the sacred temple rituals since childhood. Yet, now it felt as though Jerusalem had lost its way. Corruption and idolatry had begun to seep into the very heart of the holy city. Nobles and priests, who were meant to be shining examples of righteousness, now sought only their own selfish gain. A deep, unsettling unease stirred within Isaiah. He sat in a small, quiet chamber near the temple, meditating in profound silence. Outside, the wind howled, violently slamming the windows, as if issuing a dire warning of what was to come. He sensed a drastic change on the horizon, though he couldn't pinpoint its exact nature. His heart was restless, a tumultuous mix of fear and anticipation. Suddenly, the door burst open, shattering the stillness. "Brother Isaiah! Brother Isaiah!" cried Jeremiah, his closest friend, breathless and distraught. "Have you heard the news? The borders are under threat. The Assyrians are marching against, they say, with Uzziah dead. We are easy prey." Isaiah took a slow, deep breath before answering, his gaze steady. "And our people, Jeremiah, how are they reacting?" Jeremiah lowered his head, dejected and desperate. Lost, Isaiah. Some speak of forming alliances with nations that worship other gods. Isaiah's expression grew even darker, a shadow falling across his face. Jeremiah, our salvation does not lie in human alliances. We must return to the God of our fathers. Jeremiah looked deeply into Isaiah's eyes, a flicker of doubt in his own. But who will listen in times like these? Who will hear your words? Isaiah remained silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon where dark clouds began to gather ominously. Perhaps no one will hear me now, he said, his voice quiet but resolute. But someone must speak. Someone must remind our people who the true king is. Jeremiah nodded, moved by his friend's unwavering conviction, a glimmer of hope in his troubled eyes. Later, as Isaiah walked toward the temple, he saw men arguing anxiously in the streets and women weeping openly for their sons, who might soon be called to war. An elderly priest approached him, his face etched with discouragement. Young Isaiah, he sighed, do you truly believe God still hears us? Look around you. God has abandoned us. God would never abandon us, Isaiah replied calmly, yet firmly. We are the ones who have turned away from him. The old man shook his head in disbelief and slowly walked away. His shoulders slumped. Upon entering the temple, a heavy, almost tangible silence hung in the air. Isaiah approached the altar, knelt slowly, and began to pray, his voice a desperate plea. God of our fathers, we are lost. Our nation is drifting from your law. Our hope is fading. Where else can we look but to you? As he prayed, Isaiah felt a strong wind sweep through the temple, gently shaking the sacred veil. An indescribable presence began to fill the space, intense and overwhelming. A radiant light, blinding in its purity, emerged from behind the veil, piercing through him with a brilliance too great to endure. Isaiah's eyes filled with tears, his body trembling uncontrollably. "Oh Lord," he cried with a trembling voice, "what am I seeing?" A glimpse of the divine, the temple transformed. A voice, deep and majestic, resonated through the very foundations of the temple. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Isaiah fell to the ground, utterly unable to withstand the overwhelming force of the vision. Feeling completely unclean and unworthy, he cried out in despair, I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. A celestial being, a seraph, swiftly flew to the altar, taking a burning coal with tongs. Isaiah felt his heart pound with a primal fear and anticipation. The being approached with calm and mercy, reaching out the coal toward the young priest's lips. Do not fear, Isaiah, the celestial being said in a gentle yet firm voice. This coal has touched your lip. Your guilt is taken away. Your sin is forgiven. The pain Isaiah felt was deep, burning, yet profoundly liberating. A purification of his very being. Then the divine voice echoed again throughout the temple, reverberating through his soul. Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Isaiah slowly raised his head. Even knowing the trials and immense suffering he would inevitably face, he felt an irresistible compulsion to answer with unwavering resolve. He lifted his voice, firm and clear. Here I am, Lord, send me! Yet, little did he truly know that what he had just witnessed in that sacred temple would forever etch itself into his memory, haunting him for the rest of his extraordinary life. The weight of glory. A prophet's transformation, Isaiah remained kneeling on the cold temple floor, his heart racing, his mind in a whirlwind of absolute turmoil. His lips still burned from the searing touch of the heavenly coal. But now a new reality unfolded before his very eyes, a reality far beyond any human comprehension. Everything around him seemed to vibrate. The ground, the ancient walls, even the very air itself pulsed with an indescribable, raw force. A light so intensely brilliant appeared before him that Isaiah had to instinctively cover his eyes with his trembling hands, utterly unable to bear the blinding brightness. Through the narrow gaps between his shaking fingers, he began to perceive extraordinary detail. Before him stood a majestic throne, high and exalted, radiating a pure, penetrating light. Seated on the throne was the Lord of vast, immeasurable figure whose face could not be beheld. So overwhelming was his glory. Around the throne, celestial beings, the seraphim, with 6 wings each, flew in continuous awe-inspiring motion. Isaiah watched, both utterly fascinated and deeply terrified, as 2 wings covered their faces, 2 covered their feet, and with the other 2 they hovered gracefully in the air. A deep, powerful melody echoed throughout the temple, repeating without ceasing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." The voice of these magnificent beings resonated deep within the prophet's soul, causing every fiber of his body to tremble. The entire temple seemed to quake under the sheer intensity of that divine proclamation, while smoke began to fill the sacred space, partially clouding his vision. Overwhelmed by a profound sense of awe and fear, Isaiah began to murmur to himself, his voice barely a whisper, "How can I be here? This is too much for any man to bear." With every repetition of the celestial chant, his heart sank deeper into the painful awareness of his own impurity. It wasn't just fear. It was an overwhelming sense of shame in the face of such pure, divine perfection. He bowed his head, a single tear slowly tracing its path down his cheek and falling onto the cold temple floor. "I am ruined," he whispered, trembling under the crushing weight of that terrifying revelation. "I am unworthy of this. I do not deserve to witness such glory. I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips." Isaiah pressed his hands to his chest, trying in vain to ease the suffocating weight pressing down on him. His breathing grew labored, his body weakening under the sheer magnitude of the vision. "Why have you brought me here, Lord?" he groaned, feeling completely unable to withstand such holiness. As he remained kneeling, the voice that echoed throughout the temple seemed to intensify even more. The young priest realized that the very foundations of the temple were trembling beneath the force of the celestial proclamation. Isaiah began to sob deeply, recognizing the profound gravity of his own condition before the perfect holiness that surrounded him. "There is no salvation for me here," he whispered, desperate. "I am before the living God. No mortal can survive his presence." Suddenly, a shadow fell over Isaiah, abruptly interrupting his desperate thoughts. He slowly lifted his head and saw one of the seraphim swiftly approaching. His heart pounded with renewed fear, convinced that this moment would be his absolute end. The celestial being held something in his hands. Isaiah tried to identify it, and his heart nearly stopped when he realized what it was. A burning coal, taken directly from the heavenly altar. The searing glow of the ember seemed to light up the entire temple, casting dancing shadows on the smoke-filled walls. The celestial being came closer, his piercing eyes fixed on the trembling prophet. "No, Lord, I cannot bear this," Isaiah pleaded, trying in vain to retreat. The being landed gently before him, holding the glowing coal firmly in one hand. His eyes radiated calm and assurance, and almost gentle authority. Isaiah said to the celestial being with a deep and comforting voice, "This coal will touch your lips to purify you. Do not be afraid." Before Isaiah could react, he felt the searing heat of the coal touch his lips. The intense pain was strangely mixed with an indescribable sense of relief and profound cleansing. He cried out, not from the physical agony, but from the overwhelming shock and the sheer magnitude of the spiritual purity. The celestial being smiled gently as he withdrew the coal from Isaiah's lips. "Your guilt has been removed. Your sin is forgiven." Still stunned by the intensity of the moment, Isaiah slowly lifted his eyes to the glorious throne before him. He felt incredibly light, as if a crushing burden had been completely lifted from his heart. Then a powerful and profound voice resounded once again, this time with a clarity that could not be ignored. Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? The divine voice seemed to penetrate Isaiah's very bones, filling him with a supernatural conviction. Without pausing to consider any future consequences, Isaiah responded immediately, his voice firm and resolute. Here I am. Lord, send me. Yet, little did he truly know that what he had just witnessed in that sacred temple would forever etch itself into his memory, haunting him for the rest of his extraordinary life. The path less traveled, a prophet's mission, the intense light slowly began to fade, and Isaiah realized that the overwhelming vision was coming to an end. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, a sudden wave of deep anguish washed over him. Something was still hidden, a burden he would have to carry for a long, long time. Just when he thought the experience was completely over, a new, terrifying image began to form, slowly, chillingly, before his eyes. And just when Isaiah thought he might die from the sheer weight of it, something utterly unexpected happened. The heat still burned on Isaiah's lips, a persistent, intense pulse. Even after the celestial being had withdrawn with the burning coal, it was a pain strangely mixed with a profound sense of relief, as if with every passing second, something impure was being meticulously torn from within him. Isaiah remained kneeling, eyes closed, breathing heavily, his body trembling. His hands, resting on the cold temple floor, could barely support his weight. It was as if he stood on a precipice, suspended between life and death, between the frail human and the all-powerful divine. A soft, yet firm voice broke the profound silence. Rise, Isaiah. He opened his eyes with effort. Before him, still hovering in the air, was the seraph who had touched his lips. The light surrounding him was less blinding now, but the glory of the place remained undeniably majestic. Your guilt has been removed, the celestial being repeated, his voice resonant. Your sin has been forgiven. Isaiah, his voice barely a whisper, asked, Why? Why me? I am nothing more than a fragile man, a sinner. The seraph only smiled gently, as if the answer were too obvious to even be spoken. Then the atmosphere began to vibrate once more, and a voice more powerful, more majestic than any Isaiah had ever heard called through the ancient walls of the temple. Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Isaiah felt his heart stop for a moment. The question seemed to float in the air, awaiting a response, as if the entire universe itself waited on the decision of a single, humble man. He looked around, as if searching for someone else who might take on such an immense responsibility. But the temple was empty, save for the celestial beings and the overwhelming, divine presence of God. I am here. His voice came out weak at first, but then gained an incredible strength, as if a new vigor was rising from deep within his very soul. Here am I, send me! The words left his lips before he could even reflect on the profound consequences. It was an impulse, a deep inner certainty, a response not born of the mind, but of the soul itself. For a brief, timeless moment, silence fell. Not even the seraphim sang. Only the sound of Isaiah's heavy breathing filled the sacred air. Suddenly, the light around the throne grew brighter, more intensely radiant. It was as if heaven itself was responding, confirming his answer. The celestial being before him drew closer once more, looking him directly in the eyes with a gaze that held both immense compassion and solemn, unwavering resolve. Then listen carefully, Isaiah, he said, his voice deep and resonant. The path you have chosen will not be easy. Your words will be like hammers breaking stone, but they will strike hearts of stone. You will speak to the people, but they will shut their ears. You will prophesy, but they will not believe. Isaiah furrowed his brow, confused and troubled. Lord, how long will this go on? Until when will they not listen? The answer came like thunder, rumbling through the temple walls, echoing the severity of the task. Until the cities lie ruined and without inhabitant. Until the houses are deserted and the fields desolate. Until the Lord drives the people far away and the land is left utterly forsaken. Isaiah's blood ran cold. His hands began to tremble again. He sensed that the mission was far greater, far heavier than he had ever imagined. The celestial being then made a gesture toward him, a sign of enduring promise. But Isaiah, even in the midst of destruction, a remnant will remain a stump. A holy seed will survive. Isaiah took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to absorb it all. He felt small, powerless, yet at the same time, a new, unquenchable fire began to burn in his chest, of fire that no rejection, no pain, and no future suffering could ever extinguish. Still on his knees, he closed his eyes for a moment, preparing himself spiritually for the immense journey that lay ahead. When he opened his eyes again, the temple seemed to have returned to its normal state. There was no more smoke, no visible seraphim, no radiant, blinding light. But Isaiah knew, with every fiber of his being, that his life would never, ever be the same. He stood slowly, looking toward the altar with a mixture of profound awe and deep reverence. As he stepped out of the temple, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the clouds, as if the heavens were whispering a profound message to him. This is only the beginning. Isaiah took a few steps outside and, looking toward the city, saw the people going about their daily routine, completely unaware of the supernatural, life-altering experience he had just lived through. Jeremiah, his loyal friend, spotted him from afar and ran to him, concern etched on his face. Isaiah, where were you? You look different. Isaiah, his eyes still glowing with an ethereal emotion, simply smiled, took a deep breath, and replied, Jeremiah, I believe God has given me a mission. Jeremiah stared at him, startled. What kind of mission? Isaiah looked to the horizon, his expression serious, almost solemn. A mission that will hurt more than I can possibly imagine, he answered without hesitation, blissfully unaware of just how truly painful his divine mission would be. Before we continue, we humbly ask for your support. Subscribe to the God is Mysterious channel and leave a like to help us continue bringing deep, profound biblical stories like Isaiah's to more and more hearts in need of hope and revelation. Now, let us continue with the extraordinary journey of this prophet, who saw the future through eyes of unwavering faith, a voice in the wilderness, rejection, and resilience. Isaiah walked slowly through the streets of Jerusalem, feeling the immense weight of the divine mission he had just received. Each step seemed to carry the echo of the powerful voice still ringing in his mind. Go and tell this people, ... But what God had said afterward left the young prophet with a heavy, aching heart. Jeremiah, said Isaiah, calling out to his friend as he approached a small square where some men were arguing heatedly about politics and the looming war. I need to tell you something. Jeremiah turned quickly, his brows furrowed. You're still not yourself, Isaiah. Ever since that morning in the temple, your eyes have changed. What happened? Isaiah took a deep, fortifying breath, as if drawing courage from the very depths of his soul. God called me ... But he hesitated for a moment, the words difficult to utter. He also revealed to me that the people will not listen to me. What do you mean? Asked Jeremiah, frowning in confusion. God said they will have ears but not hear, eyes but not see. Their hearts will become hardened. Jeremiah fell silent for a few seconds, as if trying to process the incomprehensible words he had just heard. So, you're saying God is sending you to preach, already knowing that no one will listen? Exactly, Isaiah replied, his gaze sorrowful, weighted with the truth. My mission is to proclaim, Jeremiah, even if no one wants to hear. His friend ran a hand through his hair, utterly confused. That makes no sense, Isaiah. Why would God do that? Isaiah sighed deeply, a profound weariness in his voice. Because even in the midst of rejection, there is a greater purpose. A remnant will be saved. A holy seed will remain. The two walked in silence until they reached the bustling entrance of the marketplace. There, Isaiah saw a group of religious leaders, the same ones he had seen many times in the temple, approaching cautiously. Isaiah raised his voice, a powerful resonance cutting through the street noise. O people of Jerusalem, thus says the Lord, listen closely, but do not understand. Look clearly, but do not perceive. Some men stopped to listen, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disdain. Others simply shook their heads, laughing openly with derision. Another prophet with words of doom. One of them muttered dismissively, "We don't need prophets, we need soldiers," shouted another, his voice laced with impatience. Isaiah, his gaze fixed and full of unwavering determination, continued, "Harden the hearts of this people, O Lord. Shut their ears, blind their eyes until the cities lie in ruins, until the fields are laid waste." A chilling silence fell over the square for a few seconds, as if the very air held its breath. But soon, laughter and insults erupted again, louder than before. "Go away, Isaiah," shouted an elderly man, his face contorted in anger. "We don't need your threat." Jeremiah approached his friend, grabbing him firmly by the arm. "Let's go, Isaiah." "They're not ready to listen." As they walked away, Isaiah suddenly stopped and looked back. Something inside him told him, with a chilling certainty, that this initial rejection was only the beginning of a long and painful road. That night, back in his small, humble home, Isaiah knelt and prayed, his voice a raw whisper in the quiet darkness. "Lord, how long? How long will I preach and not be heard? How long will I watch my people drift further and further from you?" The answer came as a deep whisper in his mind, echoing the hard truth. Until the land is devastated, until chaos covers the cities, until only a burned stump remains, but from that stump, life will rise again. Isaiah slowly opened his eyes, feeling a profound mix of fear and a fragile burden. Days later, the ominous news began to arrive. Enemy troops advancing, hunger rising in the streets, injustice festering. The very words Isaiah had prophesied were beginning to come true before his very eyes. Yet still, the people remained indifferent, stubbornly turning away from the truth. One morning, while passing through the marketplace, Isaiah heard a group of women weeping. Another village was destroyed. One of them lamented, her voice choked with sorrow. Isaiah clenched his fists, a burning resolve in his eyes. They must hear. They must understand, he muttered to himself, his voice raw with emotion. Jeremiah appeared from around a corner, his face etched with concern. "Isaiah, are you going to keep going?" "Until my last breath," he answered, his voice resolute, unwavering. Isaiah knew his journey would be marked by pain, rejection, and profound solitude. But something deep inside him told him that God's purpose was far greater than he could possibly comprehend at that moment. But the greatest revelation of all was still yet to come. The Emmanuel prophecy. A glimmer of unimaginable hope. Days in Jerusalem had become increasingly tense. Each morning brought fresh grim news. Battles lost. Political alliances failing. Hunger spreading in nearby villages like a creeping sickness. Isaiah walked the streets, his heart heavy, observing the weary, defeated faces of his people. He knew his mission was to proclaim, even if no one listened, but that truth did little to lighten the immense weight in his heart. One cloudy afternoon, Isaiah was summoned to the royal palace. King Ahaz, now on the throne, appeared insecure, hesitant, and utterly overcome with paralyzing fear. The looming threat of invasion from the powerful kingdoms of Israel and Syria had driven the monarch into a state of panic. Upon entering the throne room, Isaiah immediately sensed the suffocating tension. Armed guards standing stiffly, murmuring advisors with pale, worried faces. "Isaiah!" the king called out in desperation, his voice trembling. "What does your God say about all of this? We're surrounded by enemies. My heart, ... my heart is consumed by fear." Isaiah took a deep breath. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, drawing strength from a source beyond himself. Then he stepped closer to the king, his voice firm and unwavering. "Hear me, O house of David. Do not fear these two smoldering stubs of firewood doughs, kings of Syria and Israel. King Ahaz looked at him anxious and skeptical. But how can I not be afraid? They're already at our gate. Isaiah remained unmoved, his gaze steady. God will give you a sign, something that will prove he is still in control. He paused briefly, letting the weight of his words settle, and looked straight into the king's eyes, proclaiming the unimaginable. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. A heavy, stunned silence fell over the entire room. What? Asked Ahaz, visibly confused, his voice barely a whisper. A virgin conceiving! That's impossible! The advisors around him began to murmur, exchanging doubtful, incredulous glances. This makes no sense, whispered one. Isaiah, you speak in riddles, said another, irritated. Jeremiah, who had accompanied Isaiah to the palace, stepped closer and whispered, Isaiah, are you sure of what you heard? Isaiah nodded firmly, his conviction absolute, while the men in the room questioned, laughed, and mocked the prophecy. Isaiah stood still, his gaze fixed on something far beyond human understanding. Emmanuel, he repeated softly, almost like a prayer, the name holding a profound, secret power. As they left the palace, Jeremiah walked beside Isaiah, still stunned. A virgin! How? How can that happen? Isaiah stopped and turned to his friend. I don't know, Jeremiah. I don't understand, but I know this is what God revealed. And I know that one day that child will be born. But the people, Jeremiah insisted, his voice laced with frustration. They hardly believe what you already saying. How can they possibly accept something like this? Isaiah looked up at the sky, now covered in heavy gray clouds. I don't understand it all either, my friend, but I know I must speak. In the days that followed, the news of the prophecy spread quickly, morphing into a topic of ridicule. Wherever he went, Isaiah heard the mocking comments. A son from a virgin, madness, some said, scoffing. Now the prophet is truly delusional, others sneered. There were laughs, biting sarcasm, even direct insults. One morning, as he walked toward the temple, Isaiah was approached by a group of young men. Hey, one of them shouted, a cruel smirk on his face. When's your Emmanuel coming? We get it! You love metaphors, right? Isaiah stopped, looking at them calmly, his eyes holding a profound sorrow. Laugh today, mock now. But the words of the Lord do not fail. The group burst into renewed laughter as they walked away, their jeers echoing behind them. Back in his humble home, Isaiah knelt again, as he had done so many times before. Lord, why do you show me things my mind cannot grasp? Why do you make me proclaim a sign so mysterious? The profound silence of the night was his only answer. And then, as he sat there, with eyes closed and a heavy heart, Isaiah had another brief vision. A woman bathed in a soft, ethereal light, her belly growing, and finally, a child, serene and pure, in her arms. Emmanuel, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. The image vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Isaiah remained motionless, struggling to breathe, the weight of the inexplicable revelation pressing down on him. This defies all human logic, he whispered, as tears continued to fall. A testament to the profound mystery he had witnessed. Isaiah realized that what he had seen defied all human logic, all conventional understanding. The weeks following the revelation of the sign of Emmanuel were even more challenging for Isaiah. Tension in Jerusalem was rising like a storm about to break. Enemies surrounded the borders, and a deep, pervasive fear had taken hold of everyone. Even so, Isaiah rose every morning with the same unwavering conviction to deliver the message of hope that God had so mysteriously entrusted to him. The Prince of Peace, a glimpse of future glory on a cold morning. Isaiah stood in the central square of the city. Merchants were setting up their stalls, their faces weary, and citizens wandered about, discussing the latest military threats with hushed, anxious voices. Isaiah raised his voice with conviction, cutting through the morning chatter. Hear me, people of Judah! Do not let fear consume you. The Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and he shall be called Emmanuel, God with us. Some people stopped to listen, a flicker of curiosity in their eyes. Others simply walked on, shaking their heads in disapproval, dismissing him as a madman. From the crowd, a man shouted mockingly, "The dreaming prophet returns with his messages of doom and impossible promises." Another man, with a bitter, resigned expression, added, "Emmanuel, what kind of God allows such suffering to fall upon us?" Isaiah, undeterred, his gaze resolute, continued, "Even in the midst of despair, there is hope. This child will be a sign that God has not abandoned us. Even when there is silence, even when everything around us screams defeat, God is with us." Jeremiah, always nearby, came closer and whispered, "Isaiah, don't you see that the more you speak, the more hatred you stir? They look at you with contempt." Isaiah closed his eyes briefly, a sigh escaping his lips. "I know, Jeremiah, but if God told me to speak, I will speak. Even if no one believes, his word does not return empty." That night, Isaiah gathered his family at home. With his wife and children gathered around him, he spoke with profound emotion, his voice thick with conviction. "My children, I know many laugh at me. They say I'm mad, but I want you to know, I believe every word the Lord has given me. One day, this child, this Emmanuel, will be born, and he will change everything." His wife, always quiet and supportive, gently touched his hand, her eyes filled with trust. "I believe you, my love." Isaiah smiled, his eyes brimming with tears, a quiet strength radiating from him. Days later, a group of religious leaders came looking for Isaiah at the temple. Their faces were stern, almost hostile. "Isaiah," said the eldest among them, his tone authoritative, "we can't allow you to keep spreading false hope among the people. We are already suffering enough." "These words are not mine," Isaiah replied firmly, his eyes filled with determination. "They are from the Lord of hosts. If he sent me to proclaim hope, that is what I will do." The man snorted in anger. "Then may your God protect you, because the people are tired of empty promises." As the leaders walked away, Isaiah remained there, alone in the temple, his eyes fixed on the altar. "Lord, I am tired. My heart aches, but I will not back down." That night, Isaiah had a brief, comforting dream. In the dream, he saw a small boy running among the olive trees, with a peaceful smile and a serenity that seemed to wrap around everything, a palpable sense of hope. "Emmanuel," he whispered as he awoke, his face wet with tears. But even in that image of hope, Isaiah sensed that there was something greater, something still hidden from his full understanding. The sign of the virgin was only the beginning, a powerful promise, but it was only a sign. The greatest mystery remained hidden. The days dragged on, and Jerusalem remained submerged in uncertainty. Military threats were increasing, and hunger was beginning to invade the poorest homes. The people walked the streets with their heads down, their eyes dull, carrying on their backs the heavy weight of hopelessness. Isaiah, however, remained steadfast. Every morning, before the sun had even risen, he climbed one of the hills near the city to pray. "Lord," he whispered, his eyes lifted to the still dark sky, "we are weary. We are on the verge of collapse. We need a word, a sign, a light." That morning, while still on his knees, something truly extraordinary happened. Isaiah felt his body tremble as a new vision filled his mind. It was as if the very heavens had opened before him. He saw a child, but not an ordinary child. There was a special glow around him, as though the very glory of God rested upon that small, innocent figure. A heavenly voice echoed, deep and resonant. "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Isaiah opened his eyes, startled, his heart pounding a furious rhythm. "A Prince of Peace," he whispered, still trying to grasp the overwhelming meaning of what he had just seen. Without wasting a moment, Isaiah descended the hill and ran through the streets of Jerusalem. He found a small group gathered at the entrance to the marketplace, and without hesitation, he began to proclaim with fervent urgency, "Listen, people of Judah, there is hope. The Lord has revealed to me that a child will be born. He will bring government justice and everlasting peace. His name shall be Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." People stopped, some curious, others openly skeptical. A middle-aged man dressed as a merchant crossed his arms and shouted, "Another child, Isaiah. Wasn't the story of Emmanuel enough? And now you come with yet another prophecy." A woman holding her small child in her arms asked hesitantly, her voice filled with weariness, "When, Isaiah? When will this child be born? We're tired of waiting." Isaiah took a deep breath, his resolve unshaken. "I don't know when, but I know that God fulfills what he promises." Jeremiah, always at his side, pulled him into a corner, his face etched with concern. "Isaiah, do you realize what you're doing? Every new word you speak seems to divide the people even more. Some are starting to believe, but many others are turning against you." "I know, Jeremiah." Isaiah clenched his fist firmly. "But the message is not mine. I cannot remain silent." That night, lying on his small bed, Isaiah could barely sleep. The majestic words of the vision echoed endlessly in his mind. "Prince of Peace, Mighty God, Everlasting Father. Lord, how can a simple child bear such grand title?" he asked in prayer, his voice a bewildered whisper. "Who will this son be? How will we recognize him?" The following days were even more difficult. Each time Isaiah rose to speak in public, the tension grew palpably. Some religious leaders began to spread malicious rumors that he was going mad, claiming his visions were just the result of exhaustion and despair. One afternoon, Isaiah was walking through the temple corridors when he was approached by a group of priests. "Isaiah," said the eldest in a tone of cold authority, "we want you to stop speaking about these children. You're confusing the people." "Confusing?" Isaiah replied, his eyes filled with unwavering determination. "I am proclaiming the truth. God is speaking." "Truth," mocked another priest, a sneer on his face. "What kind of God promises salvation through a child? Where is the army? Where is the strength we need?" Isaiah took a deep breath, his response measured yet powerful. "It's not by armies, nor by human strength," he answered. "God's answer will come in a way you do not expect." The priests walked away, laughing scornfully, while Isaiah stood there, his eyes fixed on the sacred altar, his heart heavy with the weight of their unbelief. That same night, while praying at home, Isaiah had another brief vision, a glimpse of the future that filled him with awe. He saw crowds of people, not just Israelites, but people from many nations, speaking different languages, coming from diverse cultures all, walking toward a great light on the horizon. "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light," he whispered, repeating the profound words forming in his mind. The next day he returned to the central square and proclaimed with renewed fervor, "The people who walked in darkness will see a great light. Those who dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them the light of the Lord will shine." But as before, many ignored him. Others laughed openly. Some, more enraged, began throwing stones at him. Isaiah dodged, and protected by Jeremiah, managed to flee through the narrow, winding alleys of Jerusalem. Once safely home, he fell to his knees, his spirit burdened. "Lord, how will all this happen? When? Where? Who will this child be? How will the people believe?" Once again, silence seemed to be the only answer. A tumultuous mixture of hope and confusion filled the prophet's heart. Isaiah knew he was in the midst of something far greater than he could possibly comprehend, but the true meaning of it all was still hidden from his eyes. Isaiah did not yet fully understand how this would change everything. The suffering servant, a terrifying detail, The light of hope Isaiah carried after the vision of the Prince of Peace was beginning to dim, eclipsed by the weight of the new messages God entrusted to him. The words now coming to his heart were sharp, cutting like a double-edged sword. There were no more promises of immediate comfort. Now, what God wanted him to proclaim was judgment. The next morning, Isaiah walked to the temple entrance with a pale face and hollow eyes from countless nights spent weeping in silence. Jeremiah, he called to his friend, his voice trembling. "Today the words the Lord has given me are too heavy." Jeremiah looked at him with concern. "More judgment, Isaiah." The prophet only nodded, taking a deep, fortifying breath before raising his voice to all who passed along the temple steps. "O house of Israel, O Judah, thus says the Lord of hosts, woe to Assyria, the rod of my anger. With it I will strike down rebellious nations. And as for you, people of Jerusalem, your arrogance will be brought low. The proud will be humbled, and the land will be laid waste." People paused for a moment, a strange, uncomfortable silence hovering in the air. But murmurs soon followed. "He's finally lost his mind," said one of the elders, shaking his head. "Always that voice of condemnation. Where is the God of mercy our ancestors worshiped?" Another mocked, his voice laced with disdain. Isaiah stepped down from the stairs, walking through the streets as he continued to proclaim, his voice resonating with prophetic power. "Cities will be devastated. Trees will be felled. Vineyards destroyed. The pride of Judah will be crushed. You'll trust in human alliances in your armies. Know this, the day will come when your warriors will flee without looking back." Jeremiah walked beside him, his head lowered, a palpable sadness emanating from him. "Isaiah, they won't listen. They don't want to listen." "I know," the prophet replied, his voice heavy with sorrow, "but I cannot remain silent." That night, Isaiah barely slept. Kneeling on the cold floor in prayer, he cried out, "Lord, how long? How long must I proclaim judgment and destruction? How long must I see closed faces, deaf ears, and hardened heart?" And as a response, another vision appeared before his weary eye. He saw scorched lands, homes reduced to dust, children crying inconsolably in the streets, mothers mourning over their lost ones, and priests with torn garments sitting in the ashes of desolation. This is the price of disobedience," he murmured, as tears streamed down his cheeks, a profound understanding of the consequence washing over him. The next day, during a small gathering with a group of farmers, Isaiah tried to warn them, his voice urgent and pleading. "Your fields will be seized. Your harvest destroyed. The enemy will come like a swarm of locusts. Hear the voice of the Lord while there is still time." One of the men stood up angrily, his face contorted in frustration. "Silence, prophet. Our problems are political, not spiritual. We don't want to hear your threats anymore." Isaiah stood firm, his gaze unyielding. "You may silence me, but you cannot silence the voice of God." Jeremiah once again pulled him away, afraid Isaiah would be stoned on the spot. As they walked through the narrow alleys, Isaiah suddenly stopped, his eyes fixed on something only he could see, a vision unseen by others. "Jeremiah, I love them. I love this people, but their hearts are so hardened," Isaiah said with a broken voice, tears welling in his eyes. "How can I bear to witness all of this and not be able to stop it?" "You've done everything you could," Jeremiah replied, placing a comforting hand on his friend's shoulder. "All that's left now is to pray." Isaiah nodded, but the immense weight of the mission was nearly unbearable. That night, in profound silence, he once again isolated himself in the temple, kneeling near the altar. "Lord, my heart is broken. The words you give me are heavy as stones. How long? How long?" A strong wind blew through the temple curtains, rustling them eerily. Isaiah felt a chilling sensation run down his spine. God had shown him the dire consequences of disobedience. But the prophet sensed that the suffering to come would not be the people's alone. He himself would still face a pain he could not yet imagine. Isaiah wondered if he could bear any more. unaware that the greatest pain was still to come. A vision of agony, the servant's sacrifice. Isaiah could not sleep. The agonizing images from the last vision haunted him night after night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that man's face, the servant to gaze, so full of pain, of rejection, and at the same time of a strange and inexplicable compassion that defied all human understanding. On a cold morning, Isaiah climbed the same hill where he had prayed so many times before. He knelt with his face pressed to the ground and cried out in agony, his voice raw with despair. Lord, please, I can't take this anymore. Why do you make me see this? And once again, as so many times before, the heavens seemed to tear open before him. The vision came strong and relentless, overwhelming his senses. Isaiah saw the servant, now in greater detail than ever before. The man walked slowly down a narrow street, surrounded by a hostile throng of people who looked at him with profound disdain. Some spat on the ground as he passed. Others shook their heads in bitter disapproval. An inner voice, clear and resonant, began to narrate in Isaiah's mind, as if God himself were dictating the very words. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with suffering. Isaiah gasped for breath, a painful constriction in his chest. He saw the servant being pushed, dragged, beaten without mercy. His face was swollen, covered in gruesome bruises. His eyes barely opened from so many blows. Yet miraculously, they still conveyed an undying love, a profound forgiveness. How? ... How can he look like that? Isaiah murmured, tears falling uncontrollably onto the dust. And the voice continued unwavering. Like one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Isaiah collapsed to his knees, his whole body trembling. The pain he saw was so real, so intense. It felt as if it pierced his own flesh, searing his soul. Suddenly, the scene shifted, abruptly, brutally. Now the servant was being Isaiah saw his back, torn, lacerated, bleeding profusely with every horrifying lash. No! Cried the prophet, a guttural scream of pure agony. This is too much. I can't bear it. But the vision continued, relentless in its intensity. The whips fell hard, tearing at his flesh. The skin ripped in strips. Blood flowed freely, mixing with the dust of the road. And yet, the servant did not complain. He did not fight. He did not resist. Why? Why does he accept this? Isaiah murmured between sobs, his mind reeling. And then, as if God himself answered his unspoken question, the sacred voice continued. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering. Yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. Isaiah, overwhelmed, shook his head violently, trying desperately to cast out the horrific image, but it remained unshakable, cruelly real. The vision continued. Now the servant was being led somewhere. Isaiah couldn't see exactly where, but he could hear the cacophony of shouting, of mocking gears, and the distant, heart-wrenching weeping of women. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The voice continued, each word a hammer blow to Isaiah's soul. Isaiah felt his strength leave him. His legs gave way, and he collapsed completely to the ground, his body a trembling heap. Crushed, he whispered, the realization dawning on him with terrifying clarity because of our guilt, our sins. The weight of the revelation was suffocating, crushing him under its sheer enormity. Then, the final, most devastating scene of that vision struck him like a physical blow to the chest. The servant lying still, lifeless, his body covered in wounds, his eyes closed in death. Isaiah covered his face with his hands and screamed in despair, a raw, primal sound of utter brokenness. Lord, I can't take it anymore. Don't show me anymore. It's too much for me. The wind blew fiercely over the hill. Dry leaves swirled around the prophet lying, prostrate, broken. He remained there, motionless, weeping uncontrollably. Jeremiah, who had been searching for him since morning, finally found him, his face etched with concern. Isaiah, What happened? Are you all right? Isaiah lifted his eyes, red and swollen from weeping, his voice weak, full of desperation. No, Jeremiah. What I saw, ... what God showed me. I feel I can't bear it anymore. Jeremiah helped him to his feet, but Isaiah knew with a chilling certainty that what he had just witnessed was only the beginning of a far greater suffering. He felt he could endure no more, not knowing this was only the beginning. The prophecy of redemption, unveiling the Messiah. Isaiah could barely lift himself from the ground after the vision of the wounded and humiliated servant. The images were still etched into his mind with terrifying clarity, replaying endlessly. The words he had heard echoed like silent thunder in his heart, a constant, agonizing refrain. Even as he walked home, his legs felt like each step dragged forward as if the immense weight of all the pain he had witnessed rested upon his shoulders. Jeremiah walked closely behind, watching him with deep, heartfelt concern. Isaiah, he said gently, placing a comforting hand on his friend's shoulder. Ever since that vision, you barely speak, barely sleep. What did you see? Isaiah stopped, took a deep, shuddering breath, and replied in a low, broken voice, Something, Jeremiah, something I can't even explain. It's as if heaven itself wept, as if the judgment I always proclaimed wasn't falling on the guilty, but on someone innocent. That night, Isaiah locked himself in his writing room. He took up his scroll, his inkwell, and began to write, his hands trembling as he poured out what his soul could no longer contain. The words flowed like a river, painful and inevitable, yet imbued with a profound truth. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. Isaiah paused, the tears falling unnoticed, mingling with the ink. The inkwell slipped from his hand, staining the parchment, a dark blotch on the stark white. He took a deep breath, trying desperately to control the overwhelming rush of emotions. Pierced, he whispered. But how? He placed a hand over his heart, feeling it tighten, a knot of sorrow. The horrifying images returned with renewed force. The servant, now bound to something. Isaiah looked closer, his eyes widening in terror, with arms stretched out. Hands and feet pierced by something he had never seen before. What ... what is this? He whispered, struggling to comprehend. It was a form of execution Isaiah had never known. No records of such a method existed in his time. It was something cruel, slow, prolonged suffering. The vision continued, relentless in its agony. The servant hung there, lifeless, his body covered in blood. People around him were laughing, mocking, pointing cruel fingers. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb led to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. The words came as if God himself whispered them directly to his heart, each one a profound revelation. Isaiah dropped the quill and covered his face with both hands. Why, Lord? Why does this man endure all of this without complaint? Why doesn't he defend himself? He cried in despair, his voice raw. He recalled the trials he had seen in Jerusalem, men screaming, struggling for their lives before the judges, desperately pleading their innocence. With the servant, he remained silent, utterly silent. How can someone be condemned unjustly and still accepted? The questions pounded relentlessly in the prophet's mind, a tormenting echo. In another quick, chilling vision, Isaiah saw the servant's body being taken down from that wooden structure. A man gently wrapped him in a cloth, carried him to a new tomb carved into solid rock. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death. Isaiah murmured, shocked by the terrifying accuracy of the images. The tears returned, now heavier, more profound. It makes no sense, he shouted, rising abruptly and knocking over scrolls and inkwells in his agitation. Why an innocent man? Why must someone so pure suffer like this? Jeremiah, hearing the shouting, rushed into the room, his face filled with alarm. Isaiah, what's happening? Isaiah, with bloodshot eyes and ink-stained cheeks, answered between sobs, his voice broken and raw. I saw it. I saw every detail. The suffering, the beatings, the nails, the humiliation, the death. Jeremiah remained silent for a moment, stunned, trying to process the incomprehensible words. But why? He finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. Isaiah looked at his friend, his eyes filled with a terrifying mix of pain and awe. Jeremiah, he said, his voice low but firm, resolute. It wasn't for his sins, it was for ours. All the guilt, all the pain that was ours was laid upon him. His friend stepped back as if trying to process those monumental, shocking words. But Isaiah, he stammered, this is too cruel. No one would do that for a people who rejected him. Isaiah slowly nodded, a profound, almost mystical understanding in his gaze. No one, except someone sent directly by God. Someone with a purpose far beyond our understanding. Silence filled the room, heavy and profound. The two stood there, motionless, immersed in the crushing weight of that revelation. Isaiah picked up the scroll again and continued to write, even as his hand trembled, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. He knew that no matter how much pain these words carried, they had to be written. They were words that would outlive generations, words of unimaginable suffering, and yet inexplicable hope. Yet, as he immersed himself in the haunting images of suffering, something new began to appear at the very end of the vision, something Isaiah could not yet fully grasp. But that left him even more unsettled, more profoundly moved. He saw a light, something beyond death, a detail that should not exist, something that defied all logic of what he had just witnessed. Isaiah stopped writing, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself with a dazed, almost bewildered look, "This is impossible." Isaiah realized he was not just describing suffering, but something truly unimaginable. The ultimate victory, resurrection, and eternal hope. Isaiah remained motionless, his eyes fixed intently on the scroll, his hand still trembling over the worn wooden table. The images of the servant's suffering, humiliation, and death were far too vivid in his memory, as if he had been physically present in every agonizing moment, feeling every brutal blow, every unspoken tear, every muffled groan. But now, something new, something that defied all human logic, began to take shape, slowly, miraculously, in his mind. As he tried to finish writing the final somber lines about the servant's death, a sudden blinding light invaded his vision. It was no ordinary light. It was intense, almost blinding in its purity, forcing him to squint. Isaiah instinctively closed his eyes. Yet the scene unfolding before him remained startlingly clear, astonishingly vivid. He saw the same servant, now undeniably alive. "No, this can't be," he whispered, his voice choked with disbelief and awe. Isaiah opened his eyes wide, as if to erase the impossible vision, but when he closed them again, the image persisted, unwavering. The servant the very one he had just seen, beaten, pierced, dead, was now standing upright and radiant. His face was serene, his eyes full of an indescribable life. The scars of suffering were still there, etched upon him, but something else had taken their place, something Isaiah couldn't name, but it made him tremble with a profound, sacred fear and wonder. A soft voice, like a divine whisper, echoed within him. After the anguish of his soul, he will see the light and be satisfied. Isaiah felt the ground shift beneath his feet, the very foundations of his understanding trembling. Light, satisfied. After such suffering, he murmured, covering his face with his hands, trying to contain the tempestuous storm of emotions raging within him. He abruptly rose from the table and began pacing the room frantically. "This is impossible," he repeated, his voice rising. "No one returns from death. No one." The sound of the door opening interrupted his frantic thoughts. Jeremiah entered, out of breath, his face etched with concern. "Isaiah, rumors are spreading. People are gathering. demanding that you stop speaking. They say your words are disturbing everyone. Isaiah, his eyes fixed on the floor, responded in a low, trembling voice. Jeremiah, what I've just seen, even I can barely believe it. What? Jeremiah stepped closer, his heart pounding. Isaiah took a deep breath, as if struggling to organize the overwhelming rush of thoughts. I saw life after death. I saw the servant, the one who was crushed, pierced, ... I saw him standing alive, as if death itself had been defeated. Jeremiah stepped back, startled, his face falling. Isaiah, that's impossible! I know, the prophet replied, tears falling slowly, unbidden. But I saw it with these eyes. Isaiah walked to his table, picked up the scroll, and with still trembling hands, began to write once more, compelled by a force beyond himself. And it pleased the Lord to crush him, causing him to suffer. And when he makes his soul an offering for sin, he will see his offspring. He will prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. He paused for a moment, reflecting on every profound word he was writing. He will prolong his days, he repeated, trying to fully grasp the staggering implication. Does that mean he will live even after being crushed? Jeremiah, still in shock, sat down beside him, his gaze fixed on Isaiah. Isaiah, do you realize what you're saying? You're writing that a man, a real man, will die and then live again. Isaiah nodded slowly, his eyes shining with a profound truth. That's exactly it, and more. He looked at his friend, his eyes full of awe and wonder. He won't just live again. He will see the reward for his suffering. He will witness the fruit of his sacrifice, as if death didn't have the final word over him. Silence filled the room, thick with the weight of this astounding revelation. Isaiah knew that revealing this to the people would bring even more mockery, more rejection, more pain. Who would believe in a resurrection? Who would accept such an outrageous prophecy? He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and still on his knees, whispered a prayer, a desperate plea for understanding and strength. Lord, I'm standing at the edge of something my mind cannot grasp. I need understanding. I need your strength. In that moment, as the wind blew gently through the half-open window, Isaiah felt a new, profound conviction begin to grow in his heart. Something great, something too revolutionary to comprehend alone, was being meticulously written through his trembling hand. Isaiah knew he was standing at the edge of something far too revolutionary to understand alone. The tapestry completed. The Messiah revealed, the days in Jerusalem remained heavy, as if the very air carried the immense weight of Isaiah's prophecies. Each message, he announced, seemed to tear away a bit more of the people, as fragile hope, war, famine, judgment, suffering, everything was unfolding, just as he had declared. Yet, that morning, upon waking, Isaiah felt something profoundly different in his spirit. Sitting at the edge of his bed, he closed his eyes and prayed silently a whispered plea. Lord, after all I have seen, after all I have heard, is there any hope left? And in that moment, a new glorious vision began to take shape. Isaiah saw fields blooming where there had only been dry, barren land. He saw children playing joyfully in the streets without a trace of fear. He saw men and women, their faces alight with hope, joyfully rebuilding the ancient walls of Jerusalem. Laughter and songs echoed through the city, a symphony of restoration. A gentle voice, almost like a whisper of spring, filled the air. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the brokenhearted. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn. Isaiah opened his eyes suddenly, his heart pounding with a renewed, vibrant hope. Hovey whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Without wasting time, he rushed out of his house, He walked through the bustling streets, crossed the city squares, until he reached the temple. There, with a firm and emotional voice, he began to proclaim, his words ringing with profound power. "Oh, Jerusalem! Oh, people of Judah! Listen! A time of restoration is coming. It won't always be ashes and mourning. There will be comfort for those who weep. There will be freedom for the oppressed." The people, used to Isaiah's harsh messages of judgment, looked on in astonishment, some drawing closer, curious, a spark of something new in their eye. "Are you saying that after everything, there is still hope?" asked an elderly woman, her voice hesitant, a fragile question. Isaiah smiled, his eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of profound joy. "Yes," he replied with conviction, his voice unwavering. "After the darkest night, the sun rises again. God has not forgotten us." Jeremiah, always by his side, placed a comforting hand on his friend's shoulder. "This is the message you've been waiting for, isn't it?" Isaiah nodded, his gaze fixed on the hopeful horizon. "God showed me judgment, showed me suffering, but now he shows me redemption, a new beginning, a new chance for all of us." The following days were remarkably different. Isaiah was still rejected by some, but for the first time, he saw attentive eyes, open hearts, people willing to hear about a better future. He began to record this new vision with special care, with a sense of profound purpose, to bestow on those who mourn in Zion a crown instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. As he wrote, tears ran down his face, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of profound hope and joy. Jeremiah watched him from a distance and said to another friend, "I've never seen Isaiah so determined, so full of life." Yet, even with all this renewed energy, something still unsettled the prophet's heart. There was a detail, a crucial piece of the puzzle that remained hidden. As much as he spoke of restoration and hope, Isaiah felt that the final purpose, the deepest answer to all the visions, had not yet been fully revealed. The ultimate victory, resurrection, and eternal hope. Isaiah remained motionless, his eyes fixed intently on the scroll, his hand still trembling over the worn wooden table. The images of the servant's suffering, humiliation, and death were far too vivid in his memory, as if he had been physically present in every agonizing moment, feeling every brutal blow, every unspoken tear, every muffled groan. But now, something new, something that defied all human logic, began to take shape, slowly, miraculously, in his mind. As he tried to finish writing the final somber lines about the servant's death, a sudden blinding light invaded his vision. It was no ordinary light. It was intense, almost blinding in its purity, forcing him to squint. Isaiah instinctively closed his eyes. Yet the scene unfolding before him remained startlingly clear, astonishingly vivid. He saw the same servant, now undeniably alive. "No, this can't be," he whispered, his voice choked with disbelief and awe. Isaiah opened his eyes wide, as if to erase the impossible vision, but when he closed them again, the image persisted, unwavering. The servant the very one he had just seen, beaten, pierced, dead, was now standing upright and radiant. His face was serene, his eyes full of an indescribable life. The scars of suffering were still there, etched upon him, but something else had taken their place, something Isaiah couldn't name, but it made him tremble with a profound, sacred fear and wonder. A soft voice, like a divine whisper, echoed within him. After the anguish of his soul, he will see the light and be satisfied. Isaiah felt the ground shift beneath his feet, the very foundations of his understanding trembling. Light, satisfied. "After such suffering," he murmured, covering his face with his hands, trying to contain the tempestuous storm of emotions raging within him. He abruptly rose from the table and began pacing the room frantically. "This is impossible," he repeated, his voice rising. "No one returns from death. No one." The sound of the door opening interrupted his frantic thoughts. Jeremiah entered, out of breath, his face etched with concern. Isaiah, rumors are spreading. People are gathering, demanding that you stop speaking. They say your words are disturbing everyone. Isaiah, his eyes fixed on the floor, responded in a low, trembling voice. Jeremiah, what I've just seen, even I can barely believe it. What? Jeremiah stepped closer, his heart pounding. Isaiah took a deep breath, as if struggling to organize the overwhelming rush of thoughts. I saw life after death. I saw the servant, the one who was crushed, pierced out. I saw him standing alive, as if death itself had been defeated. Jeremiah stepped back, startled, his face palling. Isaiah, that's impossible. I know, the prophet replied, tears falling slowly, unbidden. But I saw it with these eyes. Isaiah walked to his table, picked up the scroll, and with still trembling hands, began to write once more, compelled by a force beyond himself. And it pleased the Lord to crush him, causing him to suffer. And when he makes his soul an offering for sin, he will see his offspring. He will prolong his day, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. He paused for a moment, reflecting on every profound word he was writing. He will prolong his days, he repeated, trying to fully grasp the staggering implication. Does that mean he will live even after being crushed? Jeremiah, still in shock, sat down beside him, his gaze fixed on Isaiah. Isaiah, do you realize what you're saying? You're writing that a man, a real man, will die and then live again. Isaiah nodded slowly, his eyes shining with a profound truth. That's exactly it, and more. He looked at his friend, his eyes full of awe and wonder. He won't just live again. He will see the reward for his suffering. He will witness the fruit of his sacrifice, as if death didn't have the final word over him. Silence filled the room, thick with the weight of this astounding revelation. Isaiah knew that revealing this to the people would bring even more mockery, more rejection, more pain. Who would believe in a resurrection? Who would accept such an outrageous prophecy? He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and still on his knees, whispered a prayer. A desperate plea for understanding and strength. Lord, I'm standing at the edge of something my mind cannot grasp. I need understanding. I need your strength. In that moment, as the wind blew gently through the half-open window, Isaiah felt a new, profound conviction begin to grow in his heart. Something great, something too revolutionary to comprehend alone, was being meticulously written through his trembling hand. Isaiah knew he was standing at the edge of something far too revolutionary to understand alone. The tapestry completed. The Messiah revealed, the days in Jerusalem remained heavy, as if the very air carried the immense weight of Isaiah's prophecies. Each message, he announced, seemed to tear away a bit more of the people, as fragile hope, war, famine, judgment, suffering, everything was unfolding, just as he had declared. Yet, that morning, upon waking, Isaiah felt something profoundly different in his spirit. Sitting at the edge of his bed, he closed his eyes and prayed silently a whispered plea. Lord, after all I have seen, after all I have heard, is there any hope left? And in that moment, a new glorious vision began to take shape. Isaiah saw fields blooming where there had only been dry, barren land. He saw children playing joyfully in the streets without a trace of fear. He saw men and women, their faces alight with hope, joyfully rebuilding the ancient walls of Jerusalem. Laughter and songs echoed through the city, a symphony of restoration. A gentle voice, almost like a whisper of spring, filled the air. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the brokenhearted. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn. Isaiah opened his eyes suddenly, his heart pounding with a renewed, vibrant hope. Hovey whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Without wasting time, he rushed out of his house. He walked through the bustling streets, crossed the city squares, until he reached the temple. There, with a firm and emotional voice, he began to proclaim, his words ringing with profound power. "Oh, Jerusalem! Oh, people of Judah! Listen, a time of restoration is coming. It won't always be ashes and mourning. There will be comfort for those who weep. There will be freedom for the oppressed." The people, used to Isaiah's harsh messages of judgment, looked on in astonishment, some drawing closer, curious, a spark of something new in their eye. "Are you saying that after everything, there is still hope?" asked an elderly woman, her voice hesitant, a fragile question. Isaiah smiled, his eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of profound joy. "Yes," he replied with conviction, his voice unwavering. "After the darkest night, the sun rises again. God has not forgotten us." Jeremiah, always by his side, placed a comforting hand on his friend's shoulder. "This is the message you've been waiting for, isn't it?" Isaiah nodded, his gaze fixed on the hopeful horizon. "God showed me judgment, showed me suffering, but now he shows me redemption, a new beginning, a new chance for all of us." The following days were remarkably different. Isaiah was still rejected by some, but for the first time, he saw attentive eyes, open hearts, people willing to hear about a better future. He began to record this new vision with special care, with a sense of profound purpose, to bestow on those who mourn in Zion a crown instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. As he wrote, tears ran down his face, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of profound hope and joy. Jeremiah watched him from a distance and said to another friend, "I've never seen Isaiah so determined, so full of life." Yet, even with all this renewed energy, something still unsettled the prophet's heart. There was a detail, a crucial piece of the puzzle that remained hidden. As much as he spoke of restoration and hope, Isaiah felt that the final purpose, the deepest answer to all the visions, had not yet been fully revealed. That night, as the cold wind rustled the curtains in his humble home, Isaiah knelt once again, alone in the quiet. "Lord, you have shown me the pain, the judgment, the redemption, but I feel there is more, something that ties it all together, something that will give ultimate meaning to every word I've written." He remained there for hours, waiting in profound silence. Fatigue finally overcame him, and Isaiah fell asleep right there on the floor. But in his dream, a new light began to rise on the horizon of his mind, something terrifying and at the same time utterly glorious. But the final revelation, the true answer to the question, why is the book of Isaiah the most astonishing in the Bible, was still to come. The shocking truth, Isaiah's enduring legacy. Isaiah awoke, still on his knees, his face resting on the cool stone floor. The dawn slowly crept into his small home, casting soft golden beams of light through the cracks in the window. His body ached, his knees were bruised, but there was a different kind of peace. And at the same time, a palpable tension in the air he had never felt before. He stood up slowly, washed his face, took a deep breath, and with trembling hands, picked up a new scroll. Something in his spirit compelled him, an overwhelming urgency. Isaiah closed his eyes. The visions returned, but this time, everything seemed to make perfect sense, falling into place like a divine tapestry. He saw the servant. He saw the unlikely birth from a virgin. He saw the child grow, full of wisdom, bringing profound comfort to the afflicted, miraculous healing to the sick, liberating freedom to the oppressed. He also saw the scorn, the bitter betrayal, the unimaginable suffering, the brutal death. And then he saw life emerging gloriously where there had only been death. Isaiah opened his eyes, tears streaming down his face, his vision blurred by emotion. "My God," he whispered, his voice breaking with awe and wonder. Everything points to him. Everything I saw, every word I declared, it's all about one single man, one single Savior. Jeremiah rushed into the room, calling out to him, Isaiah, are you okay? You look pale. Isaiah looked at him with eyes shining as if seeing beyond what human eyes could perceive. I understand now. I finally understand. Understand what? Jeremiah stammered, bewildered. Isaiah took a deep breath and answered, a profound mix of emotion and awe in his voice. All the visions, every word of judgment, every promise of redemption, every image of suffering and glory, it all points to the Messiah, the servant Emmanuel, the Prince of Peace. They are all him. One man, one plan, one Savior. Jeremiah stood in silence, stunned, utterly speechless. But Isaiah, how can that be? You're speaking of things that will happen centuries from now. How can you be so certain? Isaiah picked up the scroll and with a firm voice recited the prophetic words. Imbued with divine authority, he shall see the fruit of the travail of his soul and be satisfied. By his knowledge my righteous servant shall justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. The prophet set down the pen, his eyes brimming with tears as he looked at his friend. I am writing the gospel itself, even before it happens. Jeremiah dropped into a seat, completely speechless. This is unbelievable, he muttered, still trying to process the magnitude of it. Isaiah continued, his voice ringing with unwavering conviction. The nations will see him. Kings will shut their mouths because of him. He will be exalted, lifted up, and greatly glorified. But before that, he will be rejected, pierced, crushed for us. Isaiah rose, walked to the window, and gazed at the distant horizon. I don't understand all the details, Jeremiah, but I know one thing. One day, when this servant comes, he will fulfill everything God has shown me. Every word, every tear, every promise. His friend, still in shock, asked in a low voice, and the people, Isaiah, will they believe? Isaiah smiled, his expression a profound blend of pain and eternal hope. Some will, others won't. But when it all happens, when every prophecy is fulfilled, the whole world will know. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and with his gaze fixed on the heavens, declared aloud, for the Lord of hosts has spoken, and his word never fails. At that moment, a deep, unshakable certainty filled Isaiah's heart. He had been chosen to meticulously record the greatest plan in the history of humanity. Plain that would only be fully understood centuries later, but which was beginning right there in each line in every prophecy flowing from his anointed mouth. And now, as he finished writing, Isaiah set down the pen, took a deep breath, and smiled with tear-filled eyes, a profound sense of peace settling over him. And now, do you truly understand why the book of Isaiah is the most astonishing and, yes, even the most terrifying book in the Bible? The revelation might just shock you to your core. When Isaiah finished his monumental prophecies, he may not have fully grasped the immense magnitude of what he was leaving to the world. He was just a man with his own doubts, his fears, his tears, but he was also a man imbued with a courage that few possess, a man who chose to obey even when everyone around him rejected him, a man who, even without fully understanding every intricate detail, kept writing, kept speaking, kept prophesying with unwavering faith. Today, when we delve into the sacred pages of the book of Isaiah, we don't merely see ancient texts or poetic words. We behold a prophetic map, a precise timeline stretching across centuries, pointing directly and unmistakably to the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Every single detail described, from the miraculous virgin birth to the brutal suffering, from profound rejection to glorious resurrection, was fulfilled with a precision that defies all human logic, all chance. And what about the prophecies yet to be fulfilled? Isaiah also spoke powerfully of the second coming, the glorious return of the Messiah, a kingdom of eternal peace where there will be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying, nor pain. Isaiah's words are more than just prophecy. They are an invitation, a powerful call for you to choose to trust, just as he did, even in the face of overwhelming rejection, to proclaim hope, even amidst deep crisis and despair, to believe in God's promises, even when everything around you screams the exact opposite. If Isaiah, centuries before Christ walked the earth, could see so clearly what we would only come to understand much later, imagine what God can still reveal to you today in your own life. And so, the profound question that echoes into our time, simple yet powerfully resonant, is this: what about you? Are you ready to live with the same unwavering faith and courage as Isaiah? Are you ready to believe with every fiber of your being that just as every word from that ancient time was meticulously fulfilled, God's promises for your life will also come true in his perfect timing? The book of Isaiah is not just history, it is a living testimony that God speaks. And when he speaks, nothing can stop his word from being profoundly fulfilled. Rise, believe, proclaim, because the same God who called Isaiah is calling you today, right now, in this very moment. If this story has touched your heart, we invite you to explore more. 2 more videos featuring equally inspiring biblical characters will now appear on your screen. Click, watch, subscribe to the God is Mysterious channel, and leave a like. May God speak to you just as he spoke to Isaiah in the most unexpected moment, guiding your path with his mysterious and glorious light.